One of the most common comments I get is, can you put your music on Spotify? And I have no issue with these comments, and in fact, I decided to give these people what they wanted and put my music on Spotify. Well, I'm now deciding to pull off of streaming. Here's why. My music's only been on Spotify very briefly, but I'm already deciding to pull my music off. My reasoning for being on streaming in the first place was the idea that I couldn't make it without being on there. Well, now I realize that is just dead wrong. And I also now realize the terrible implications of being on streaming. My first album, Release This When I'm Dead, was rejected from streaming for including sampled material. In the past, this was never an issue, but for whatever reason is an issue now. My second album, Together We Fade Away, was approved despite including just as much sampled material. I initially opted to omit the problematic track that they had flagged, which, by the way, they failed to flag multiple other tracks on the same album that included the same sort of problematic sampled material that got the first track flagged, but instead I now choose to omit all my music. I don't want to be dictated by streaming services, being told what I can and cannot put in my own art. I would rather sacrifice the easiness of building an audience through streaming than vandalize my own art to meet the expectations of BS laws and corporate policies. I also now realize the real harm that streaming does, and I want no part in that. The Spotify CEO, Daniel Ek, excuse me if I mispronounce that, I really don't care, has invested tons of money into AI military technology. I am, of course, against that and originally opted to keep my music off of streaming for that very reason. But after seeing many smaller artists stay on Spotify, I began to incorrectly believe me pulling off of streaming did nothing useful and that the decision to keep my music off was completely redundant. So I decided to put my music on Spotify, and I'll be honest, it immediately felt cheap. It didn't sit right with me. As such, when Release This When I'm Dead was rejected, it was the best thing that could have happened. Because it's pushed me to realize that, yes, keeping my music off streaming is important despite what others are doing. The corruption behind streaming services is very real. I'm not doing this because I'm salty I got rejected. I could have easily gotten that album approved onto Spotify. I just chose not to vandalize my own art. I'm doing this out of spite of not wanting to desecrate my own work and be restrained by what some men in business suits decide is okay to include in art. I'm not making this video just to complain. I'm making this video for other fellow small artists. You don't have to have your music on streaming. It may seem like your ability to get an audience is incredibly limited by not being on streaming, and yes, that's true. But if more people protesting and streaming and pull their music off, things will get better and easier. Well, that's just my 2 cents on the whole streaming argument. My music is off streaming as of making this video, but I have submitted a request for it to be removed. It should be gone relatively soon. And while I'm at it, I'd also like to say thank you for the incredible support I've gotten on my work. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you.